All right, English 2. So, as we make this transition and back into the building and move into hybrid, the big question you're going to have this week is what am I doing with my time this week? And the big answer is we have been building to writing our own personal narrative, and now is the time to do that. So, along with this video, you will have an assignment sheet that will give you the particulars as well as how you're being graded for a personal narrative. But some basic things that I wanted to go over after looking at some topic ideas and some pre writing. One, making sure that you've selected a story that's really about you and not about somebody else. So, kind of typical issues that I see with students who write about somebody else is, if somebody in your family gets sick and you go to the hospital, and, that can be a story about you if it's kind of your, heartbreak and your emotional, thoughts and your sentimentality. But the conflict then is inside of you, right? So we want to clarify that the conflict is an internal conflict of what do I do, what do I imagine with my life without this person in it. Another type of a story that I think we kind of misunderstand how to tell it is the injury story. Like did this thing and then I got injured and then I had to go to the hospital and then I was better again. And if you're writing a story like that, it's very tempting to say, well, the conflict is that I got hurt. But the conflict is probably greater than that, right? It's probably like, what's the lesson that you want to take out of that personal injury story? And how do I want to make that into a learning experience for a lot of people? And if the learning experience is, well, I probably shouldn't have stood on the handlebars of my bicycle going down a hill, then that's probably not a great story to tell because most people probably already know that lesson, right? So we kind of want to think about, well, what am I imparting? Why am I telling this story? Um, so again, kind of grounding it inside of yourself. That's really what a lot of personal narratives do. Another common misconception is that this is a nonfiction piece of writing. So pretty much, with I think one exception, all of the stories that I've given you so far this year have been nonfiction. They've been about real people telling their own life stories. So we don't want to tell a story about life on Mars or a fantasy story semi to Lord of the Rings. We're telling our own personal story. So, sitting down, going through this, you've looked at the steps from last week, which include outlining and pre writing and coming up with topic ideas. And some of you are really in the position to do that, some of you aren't. Making sure that you do that early on in the week, if you hadn't done that, A, will fulfill the requirements for those assignments that maybe you didn't do, and B, are going to set you down on a road to success. Skipping those steps is a pretty good way to end up writing something that doesn't make a lot of sense. In the writing process, I want you to focus on doing the task of telling the story. I don't want you to worry too much about page space, although you're going to notice that page space is something that I put in the guidelines of the assignment. Some of you probably think that writing more pages is harder than writing fewer. But if you skip out on a lot of details, if you don't have good characterization, then it's really hard to write a competent, very, very short story. So I would encourage you to overwrite as opposed to underwrite because that's going to help you out in the long run. One challenge that I think we're all going to struggle with this year is the fact that writing a paper is something that takes a week for you guys. And it takes some forward thinking. And we've been very reactionary in how we deal with everything this year, kind of dealing with one thing at a time. If it takes me more than 15 minutes, then I'm not going to worry too much about it. Writing a paper is the opposite of that. It's a lot of time management, a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, a lot of building over a series of days. We have, like I said, a little more than 1 week to write the rough draft of this essay. The rough draft of this essay is going to be due on Monday next week. And when we come in on Monday, however we come into the class, you're going to be given a partner. probably two partners. And we're going to talk about peer editing on Monday. Tuesday, since it's election day, we have off. And then we're going to work on peer editing for the rest of next week. And then we are going to end this unit. So a couple things that I'm going to say between now and the end of that time period. So one thing is that we're going to turn in the final draft of this essay on November 9th. Okay, so the rough draft is due on November 6th. The final draft is due on November 9th. Any materials for this unit have to be finished by November 9th for you to get credit. Okay, so that means we're closing off this unit. I'm not going to accept work outside of this unit once it's done. Okay, so for many of you, that means going back, looking at the big processes that we've looked at, looking at the big assignments and turning them in. Vocab is excluded from that because all vocab is due at the same time. Reading logs, I expect you're keeping up with reading logs, or you're fixing things, or you're looking at all the little things that are going on, like maybe you didn't look at feedback that I gave you and you need to look at feedback because you don't have points for something. Anything like that, etc., etc. We will start our new unit on November 9th, and that's going to take us all the way to the end of the semester. So again, I'm containing everything on November 9th. That's the last day to turn in work that we have so far. And I do expect that you're going to have a completed paper at that time as well.